Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 635. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, the indestructible bridge-defying, has met his Earth 3 doppelganger, who is basically the evil Knievel of bridge construction, and the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
And I do envision that as being like the old Hot Wheels sets where not only does your doppelganger create really long bridges, but they also are tall, they have loops, they have unnecessary winding.
My Earth 3 doppelganger is 6'5", just absolutely physical specimen, just one of those, physically fit kind of, hey, how you doing, man? But he's not as cool as I am. So he's got the physical looks, whereas I got the brain. So we merge us together, we'll have a super person.
Well, and he's bald too, because
yes.
you're as old as I am, but you've got flowing locks. It's This episode, we're going to be talking about the War for Earth 3 #1 and Suicide Squad #13. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
Well, you know what I love? I love the words 50% off. And we've got Batman, Quarter Vowels, Mask, and book set, the new edition version, 50%, only $17.49. But that's not all. We also have the Absolute Swamp Thing by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson.
Wow.
50% off, only $50. So thank you, DCBS.
I love that. I'm in love with the Absolute. God, yeah. I've been getting the Alan Moore stuff in the Absolutes. The idea that we're going through all the Swamp Thing really as a concept of the artwork that's associated with that. Ooh, I'm very in on that one.
Yeah.
Over at InStockTrades.com, and the new releases, they have some cool books that are a little bit different. DC Poster Portfolio Dark Knight's Metal trade paperback. $24.99 regularly, 40% off, only $14.49. If you haven't picked up these, the artwork in these poster portfolios is really stunning, and I've gotten a few of them now. I'm keen on that one. Also, DC Horror presents The Conjuring the Lover hardcover. I love the whole Conjuring universe. And I'm loving DC's, they've been branding this horror line now of comics that, again, embracing some of DC's rich history with these kind of books. $24.99 regularly, 42% off, only $14.49. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you have read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Carter Hall, scientific genius from a far-off world, flies into action as Hawkman.
Jim, I want to start off the show with some sad news and some condolences. Jim Dietz, Yoda Jones from various forums and social media. And Jim has been just such a great member of the comic and overall geek culture community. Jim has been a presence on various podcasts, guest on various podcasts, a regular fixture in the convention circuit, really well known for the Gypsy Cafe, which was his restaurant with his wife, which you and I had, and it's really why I wanted to shout him out here. He was kind enough to invite us to do a Raging Bullets brunch at the Gypsy Cafe. And for us, it's just this cool opportunity for a podcast to be able to go there to record, be able to be in such an intimate... We've been lucky over the years that we've done this show to record in some really interesting settings. And the Gypsy was one of those places, man, when I was there, did I wish that was local. Only in the sense that I would have been there every weekend. I mean, what a great atmosphere. They're great people. They treated us so well. Jim is one of these people, if you haven't had the opportunity to have met Jim is one of those people that knows who he is just genuinely this really nice guy who will do anything to help you out. It's why you heard him on multiple podcasts or contributing to multiple podcasts or in the forums of various comic book communities. It's because he just was a terrific, kind, helpful person who cared about, all the same things that we do. And I'm not going to do him a service because I wasn't fortunate enough to know him the way that some did. But during my time, I've encountered him in multiple conventions. We've been able to meet him at the Gypsy. And you were at the Gypsy multiple times. You even took your family there.
Well, it was funny because, as you said, after we did the recording, I was telling, folks about it. And Mom was like, oh, we got to go there. And that sounds like a fun place. And it was. We every so often we would do a trip to Pittsburgh, and we would go, and that was always part of the stop. We always had to, find a time to have a dinner or eat something there or just say, hey, just a wonderful person, just this great guy. And as you said, we won't do justice for how awesome he was, and it's, he's got a family. He's got, there's so many people out there who absolutely love this man. And I think, all you got to do is just take a second, dive online, and you'll start seeing just all the tributes and all just the warm feelings and just the love that goes out to this guy. And all of that's 100% earned. It's, it was one of those that hit you hard. He's a guy that, when I saw the news, I was like, oh, man, no, and it hurts.
And I just wanted to really issue a condolence to everybody who was truly close to him, which I know is a lot of our audience and community knew Jim. And it just was one of those things where when I heard it, I was just immediately sad, just because it is somebody that I've had the opportunity to know. Just a terrific, nice fella, and our community lost one of our own, and it just wanted to shout it out. There is a GoFundMe associated with Jim Dietz, too, and helping out his family. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. It's already been tweeted out on our Twitter, but I want to make sure that everybody's aware that is an opportunity, too, if you want to help out.
Hope this craft can withstand this powerful force.
Our first discussion this episode is going to be on The War for Earth 3, Part 1. The writers are Robbie Thompson and Dennis Hopeless. The artists are Steve Pugh and Dexter Soy and Brett Peebles. The colors are by Matt Herms. Letters by Josh Reed, Travis Lanham, and Simon Boland. The cover is by Rafa Sandoval and Alex Sinclair. Variant covers by Gilliam March, Gleb Melikov, Liam Sharp. Associate editor is Chris Rosa. Senior editor is Paul Kaminsky. Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. By Superboy created by Jerry Siegel by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. As apologies for any name butchery on this one, I'm ready for some events. And yes. the only thing that's bittersweet about this one is we're losing 2 books out of this event, because this is going to be the wrap up of Suicide Squad's current run and Teen Titans Academy, which are both books that I've been digging. So I'm glad, though, that we got the 13th issues of these that are kind of culminating in an event, and I'm hoping from a continuing story perspective that I think Suicide Squad's a safe bet to be continuing in some capacity just because of the popularity of things like Peacemaker. And I'm hoping that Teen Titans has some form of rebirth, either prior to this summer and the upcoming event or after the upcoming, because we got that Dark Crisis event coming, so I'm hoping that these continue. But these are 2 books that I'm really enjoying, that I don't want going anywhere.
Well, I think Titans are going to come back. I 100%. I agree with you. Suicide Squad is a safe bet, for that, because they've had multiple Suicide Squad runs that, come and go, and I think Suicide Squad's a safe one. But I really think Titans, because you think about how Titans ended, it didn't have that finality ending to it.
Yeah.
It did have it open of, okay, time to rebuild. Kind of had that feeling to it. So it's just going to be waiting for the issue for it to come out. And I think the Dark Crisis after that would be a good time to rebuild the Titans and bring back the Titans. But I'll tell you, it's funny. I went through and I reread all of Titans Academy and I reread all of Suicide Squad for this one, because it was one of those things where I've been reading and I've been loving these things. So I'm up to date, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go do a full, from one on. And I just, went through and I read, all 13 issues, straight through. And it was a really good read. Again, both those series, man, just, they had a nice build on each other. where one more issue, next issue, and then going in with Earth 3 read. I was like, oh man, this is really cool. This is a good series.
Here's where I think this way of handling this is important. When you start off new series, there's always a risk factor, right? You're trying new concepts. Titans Academy is one of those. I mean, yeah, it's Teen Titans, but it still was a different exploration of Teen Titans than we'd seen previously. Suicide Squad, obviously a new series kicking off as well. To end those series off, and with this event, I'm not discounting Flash's involvement in this because I'm already a Flash junkie, but Flash isn't being canceled at the end of this. Flash is continuing on. So what I like about this is it's a big story, to your point, that you can go back and reread now, lead into this culminating War for Earth 3 event, and you feel like you've gotten like this complete package of a story versus the series just ends and you're dropped. It's really important in this day and age when people are taking the risk of putting some of their comic budget towards a newer series that they know that, okay, the focus is going to be, they're going to end me at the end of an arc, the end of a storyline. So I'm going to get a complete story here versus there's been times in the past where series have just ended like at issue 7 or something like that. And you are left like with either if you're lucky, a very rushed ending. And why I'm saying if you're lucky, that's at least an ending. In other cases, it was just you were left in the middle of a dangling plot thread that was never really resolved unless at some point in time they brought the character back in the future and the writer who was reintroducing the character happened to say, well, maybe I'll wrap up that storyline with, a couple thought balloons or something, as far as to bring you up to speed on where this character happens to have been. And in that case, you're lucky because you've at least gotten some follow-up. Because there have been in recent years some stories that wrapped up like a decade later just because the writer was kind enough to like throw that in just because they were using a character. I hate that. I love jumping on new series. I love experimentation. I love trying things like Titans Academy would be an example of an experiment. And I really enjoyed the series, and I want a satisfying wrap me up. Give me an ending. And this is a cool event because, boy, we talk about how much we wouldn't want to live in Gotham. I've found somewhere else I wouldn't want to live, perhaps more than Gotham. Yes. And that would be Earth 3.
Yes, 100% agree. I will take Gotham over Earth 3 any day of the week. Now, though, it does make me wonder, on Earth 3, do we have the world champion Cleveland Browns? Because again, if everything is an opposite, the Browns have to be just this dynasty of great football. Mm-hmm. So that's a plus for Earth 3. I'm like, I don't know. Can I put up with a homicidal maniac who could slaughter me at any given time just for the sheer fun of it, just so I can say, the 15-time Super Bowl champion Cleveland Browns? It's a tough call. It is a good debate there.
I'm looking at this Earth 3 sequence, laughing at your nonsense. And I'm looking at this Earth 3 sequence. And you know what I didn't catch the first time through? The tribute to Johnny Quick in the third panel.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that was like so cool. They're sitting there, and Power Ring is so clearly like riding on the coattails of this world's Superman. What I really love about this, so last night one of my friends sent us this meme, and it was in one of those, there's that site Super Dickory where it's, all about like Superman, just like isolated pictures of Superman where it's like Superman being mean. Well, in this particular case, there is a girl on a boat who like is clearly about to drown or something like that, and Batman and Robin are holding on to Superman's arm, who is holding onto a tree, extending across the water, and they're like, somebody should go and punch Superman for this, because, like, why didn't he just fly over and rescue her?
Exactly.
What I love about this is, in that exchange, we were, like, trading back and forth, and one of the questions was, why does there even need to be a Justice League if with Superman's power set, 90% of what they do, he should be able to handle by himself? In Earth 3, this is kind of the presentation here, where, Ultraman is the alpha, the mega alpha, and even the members of the crime syndicate who are kind of with him out of convenience. You get the impression here that any one of them would turn on Ultraman at any point in time if it was to their benefit. But they don't because of the fact that it's much more profitable, much more beneficial to be hanging out, riding on his coattails until that opportunity presents itself in a way where you can take over and be the new Ultraman. Take over that spot.
Yeah.
Which is what they all ultimately thirst for. It's this kind of adulation, this kind of absolute power. But you see this like world of fear where he is this great dictator here. And I really love seeing this story because it's a very different take. I think it's a very contemporary take on what is going on with Ultraman and this idea that this world is very, very different. I want to know so much so what Amanda Waller's true motivations are, what she's really going for here.
Yeah. What does the wall want with Earth 3? That's my big question. And that's the thing you got to love about it being Waller, about her, because it's not just what it looks on the surface. There's something else going on here. And just though, again, she is the master manipulator. That's what she does. She gets people to do things they don't want to do and actually make them think, oh, this is my idea. She is just a absolutely wonderful, brilliant villain. And I love the fact that every time I always catch myself when I say villains, I instinctively do air quotes, even though, yes, she is the bad guy in the story, but you still just got to give hesitation. You're like, what's her plan? Is she out to save the Earth Prime? And you're going to use Earth 3? Is she out for herself? What is Waller's endgame? And that is the story, And I absolutely was so loving this story, loving Suicide Squad, just everything that they building to this. I'm so excited to see what happens on Earth 3. Why does the wall want Earth 3? What is so special about 3?
I don't know. It's certainly not the quality of the catering because apparently Ultraman wasn't happy about that. That whole sequence in the beginning was just, they were honoring him. They were totally, talk about bending the knee. You couldn't bend the knee any more than these people were, clapping him and honoring him. And he just snapped out of the blue and wiped them all out. I love Power Ring is just there totally to kiss his butt. Yeah. And he's like sitting there continuing to eat, I guess, what looks like meatballs or whatever he's having over there. And as like he's wiping or, whatever hors d'oeuvres he's enjoying right there, as Ultraman is wiping out the room, he's laughing and going, nice. What kind of place is this? I love that. Because if you're going to go evil, go all in on the evil. Yes. And the first 2 pages this is really establishing. Let's talk about Match, right? Because you and I were fans of the Match concept back in the Teen Titan days when he was first introduced. Now we're seeing this character brought back, and I didn't see that swerve coming. I didn't see that was going to wind up. I thought it really was Superboy. I didn't see that it was going to be Match, and I really love the usage of Match in this because they've continued to evolve this character of Match at a time where you're not watching Superman and Lois right now, right? Or you're
no,
okay?
No, I'm behind. So I'm still in season 1. So
season 2 starts to explore. Kind of what's been really good about these CW shows is each season seems to have its own contained arc that continues on from the things that were introduced in the first season. But this season really explores some interesting Superman concepts. And I'll say I'll put this component in. There's a Bizarro element to this season, and they're doing some things with it that I haven't seen explored with this kind of depth on television. And it's really been a welcome piece. It's making me even more excited for this exploration with Match because obviously Match is very much, especially in this particular story, being utilized as a kind of hybrid Bizarro concept. I really have enjoyed seeing that character brought back in. Bizarro is one of those interesting ones that over the years has either been a very cartoony villain or has been a very deadly villain. There's been some cool psychological exploration into Bizarro at times, and I feel like Match is a great example of that, right? Where we got to see the duality of, well, this is a clone gone wrong, right? But there is still like something living in there. There's something alive in there. Match is not Superboy. Match is his own person. I've grown to really like this character. It's one of the reasons why this version of Suicide Squad ending is not something I'm real happy about, because I really like Match.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. And I'll tell you, when they did the swerve, because like you, I 100% thought he was Superboy. And then even when, they first started doing the whole, we're diving into his brain, and it looked like the memories were implanted. I'm like, what the heck? What's going on here? It never dawned on me that it was Match.
Right.
Never even dawned on me that it wasn't even Superboy. I 100% thought it was Superboy. And the beautiful swerve. Again, this story, this series did just an absolute great job of completely swerving me. I was like, oh my God, that is awesome. And then even just the reveal was awesome. And then when they kicked it up where Match, as a person, the character started growing more. And he got a girlfriend. And just that whole relationship, everything that was happening with that, I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely wonderful. I'm like, this is just, again, they took a character and let him have some growth. And that's why I 100% want to see Suicide Squad continue, and who is the squad, I don't know. Again, there's so many characters right now out there that I want on the squad. That the squad is going to be huge. It's not just going to be 6 or 7 people. I got like a dozen. I'm like, yeah, let's throw them all in there. Oh God, yeah. This has just been an absolute joy, and I feel bad because as we said, the series is ending, but it's Suicide Squad, so we know it's coming back. Just the question is, how is it going to come back? Is there going to be a continuation of some of these characters? Are we going to get more out of this? I don't know.
I'm fine with things being maxi series though, and stuff like that, where you get some depth. Like in this case, this winds up being a 13-issue maxi series, right? Great. I mean, it was a cool story, and hopefully these characters, it gave them a chance to experiment with some characters that had been on the shelf for a little while, and I like that. I mean, bring them back, and I'm glad DC is not just paring back to characters that are your more well-known characters that would wind up in TV movie properties. They're also experimenting with some of the other characters, because those are also characters that can wind up in TV, animation, and movie properties. Case in point, there's been, some original characters like Peacemaker and stuff like that who've come out and made a mark recently. It's not always about the big characters. You need to flesh out the universe. And I think this book has really done these books, I should say, have done a great job of highlighting that. Ultraman, we got an opportunity to talk about some Earth 3 recently on the show. I've always been fascinated by Earth 3 and Ultraman. This exploration of Ultraman to this kind of level, what we've seen in recent miniseries straight on through to this point, I don't remember seeing before. And I'm really, really loving it, because he's threatening. And in a way where you can't predict what he's going to do. He will snap just for fun. It's got to be hard to live on. I mean, we talked about Gotham and the unpredictability of Gotham, right? This is unpredictably on a large scale, a DEFCON 5 scale, where he'll wipe out cities if he chooses, just because he wants to. They've got a satellite there, and he's looking down on the whole planet, and you see him. He's almost bored and annoyed because of it, which is incredibly interesting to see the way that this character is being, played on. But then the things that really get to him is he wants this total control, and he wants everybody looking to him, everybody deferring to him, especially Superwoman Donna Troy. And when he sees what is blatantly a slap to his face, she is teasing him with this. She knows he's watching. She knows she's wrapping him around her little finger by doing all of this. And she knows that her plaything of Owlman is, yes, in her case, it's hers. So it's her plaything, it's her toy that she cares about as something she owns a lot more than even she's tipping the hat to here. But it's certainly not a loving relationship like we would expect. It is this sense of mine. It's almost larfly, like,
Yes.
and that type of thing. But in this particular manner, Ultraman is mad because of the fact that she is not worshiping him the way everybody else. Anything, she wants him to be her to be Power Ring.
Yeah.
He wants her to be that kind of level of, but enamored by him, in love with him. The funny part is, he's a double-edged sword because when he gets that, it's the chase that is more interesting to him, right? He wants to beat down and end all resistance, but then he's bored with it afterwards. So there is never any satisfaction with being Ultraman. Like, he will never find peace. He will never find happiness. It's always going to be this quest for the next thing. And I love the handling of this character because it's an endless cycle with him that will never truly end. And I loved that this series captured this in a way that I don't think I've really seen before. And it's something that was really interesting in this.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, you hit the nail on the head there when you said it's the chase he's after. Once he gets her, that's it. He'll be bored with her.
Yep.
He just wants that one moment where she, gives in and says yes, and that's it. And and that's the thing with her; she never will. And that's the final confrontation that I really want to see. I want to see Superwoman versus Ultraman. That is going to be the battle of the ages. That's going to be epic, and I'm actually hoping we get that in issue 2 of War for Earth 3. That in my head, this is what I've got in my head for Waller's plans. She wants Superwoman to run the show, not Ultraman, and this whole plot is to help Superwoman take over and become the leader of Earth 3, and then that way Superwoman, she can have that on Superwoman and have this as a little kind of control thing that she has over her. Her own, the Wall can have leverage on Superwoman for some reason. But I don't know. That's the only thing that's popping in my head.
I don't see the Wall trusting any of them to be figureheads here. It's an interesting sort of piece. I might be wrong. I mean, so
yeah.
You're posing an interesting sort of direction from this, and I'm not saying your direction's wrong. I guess if I'm playing this through in my head, I don't see the Wall. The Wall's game is going to be very interesting in this. And when you say issue 2, you mean the concluding chapter of this, right?
Yes, sorry, yeah.
That you think it's going to end in that piece. Well, clearly, Superwoman's got a major role coming in this. We'll talk further about that when we get into the Suicide Squad issue, but I couldn't agree with you more that she's a player in this. I do feel that the Wall would be very content with them pitted against each other, as long as it meets her needs. But I don't know that the Wall is funny, though, and you're right, on her leverage, that she feels like, puts her in charge. And sometimes she gets it wrong, where she thinks she's got a leverage that she doesn't necessarily have. So I'm wondering if this, to your point, I guess, I'm wondering if this is one of those situations. I'm insanely curious as to the Wall's endgame. What is she really going for here? Is this to stop the threat of Earth 3 to our world? Our world is clearly right now being, Earth 0 is this pivotal point of, it's like the nexus of all the multiverse. We are heading into, there's a lot of things on the table in the DC universe right now. We're heading into a big event this summer that's coming. This is an example of, as we're looking at the multiverse, a moving part in the multiverse of this convergence of this. I don't think this is by any stretch a throwaway story. I think this is building towards what's coming this summer. And I think this is another parts of the puzzle, if that makes any sense, of what's going on, especially with it being another Earth. Whatever happens with this, whatever the end result of this is clearly going to, I think, have an impact on, or be at least a component of the events this summer. Because we got Dark Crisis coming, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how much this is going to play into it, or at least set up a status quo that is going to be a part of that event for this particular planet. Or universe, I should say. I want to say planet, because it's Earth 3, but it's not. It's a whole other universe. Power Ring is always an interesting character because we've seen different variations of Power Ring and the idea of Power Ring. But I love this like Jon Stewart version of him. They've got a Green Lantern and just the whole giant missiles and the cowboys flying in on them, and Match's reaction of bullets loud, and it leads to this really cool battle sequence where we get to see the sheer depth of power of a Green Lantern when they are not holding back. Because Power Ring's not holding back here. Power Ring's like, I'm going to crush this Match guy completely. Bullets no hurt, me am, and he's like annoying, and he knocks him through the ground. And I really loved how that whole sequence played out, because when you see a Green Lantern truly unleashed, there is this immense amount of power that can come out of them. Power Ring in particular, has zero reason to do anything the nice way.
Yeah, he's tearing up this invading army big time. And again, it was, I loved, everything you said, how we're seeing this unleashed Green Lantern, and even like the pre-series, that we had on this, like the birth of Power Ring, and actually the little path that John went through to get to this level was a really cool story. And again, his relationship with the ring, because we've seen in the past where the ring was, kind of like, insulting and demeaning to the ring. Well, with this one, he's still embarrassed. He's like, you idiot, this is a bait. This is a trap. This is an invading army. He's like, okay, let's take the bait. Let's hit him up. He's like, I love just that dialogue, how the ring itself is a living entity on him, is a parasite on him. So that, for me, there's just so many things about this version of Power Ring that I'm absolutely loving. But I love just the power levels and how he's just, all the cannon fodder is just completely being destroyed. Squat, 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 squat. Just the various, you can tell he's literally just crushing skulls, killing people left and right. And then he goes up against the wall. And the wall is just calmly standing there. He's like, yeah, time to take you. I was like, I don't think so. I'm just going to beat you straight up. And I love the wall in this. Completely 100%, no fear, no hesitation, no concern at all, because she's the wall. She's got it. She's already planned for this guy.
The best part is this line. My ring thinks this is a trap, but my ring's kind of a jerk. You trying to trap me, lady? I love this idea that even in this world, the ring is evil.
Yeah.
Because we're used to the ring being this, like, I don't know if conscious is the right word, but it's almost like Kit from Knight Rider, right?
Yeah.
Where you can rely on the ring, and there's something endearing about the ring. It really does try to protect its wearer on our Earth, in our universe. And you're not seeing that in Earth 3. We get this great moment with Superwoman and Owlman, where we know from later elements of this particular storyline that I don't want to say she cares about him, she feels possessive of him. And there's a huge difference between the two, but there's an emotional feeling to that, right? Your favorite toy, your favorite plaything, or something like that is there. But talk about a control issue. She's dismissive of him because she gives him control, because it gives her control. Everything here is about what you can do to manipulate, about what you can do to gain some form of upper hand. Even their emotional interactions are those where, how can I use these feelings in this shell game of control and power? It's no wonder why is Owlman so paranoid, right? It's reinforced by those that are his quote-unquote comrades at arms, if you could call them that.
Yeah. Well, and I love how when Ultraman storms in, out of jealousy, because she's got some glee in it. She likes playing this game.
Yep.
As you said before, she knew Ultraman was watching while they were doing while they were having their fun. And that was part of the enjoyment for her. She loves manipulating this guy. She loves playing with this guy. And it is a fun little thing for her. And again, it shows just how so different she is than the other Donna, than the real Donna Troy. It's just a great moment of, there's little bits and pieces that you can say, oh yeah, this is the evil version. Well, they go even a little bit more into the evil version. It's not just, it really did a great job with these characters, with this Earth 3 and this crime syndicate.
And she can never drop that, or she's dead.
Right.
Because there's little reason for him to keep her around then.
Yeah.
Except for the same reason he's using Owlman, like why he kept Owlman around. It's like, okay, the only thing that Owlman's still alive, because the wall showed up on the scene. He sees what happened to Power Ring, and he recognizes who we should sit. Let's send an Owlman first. Which he's totally being sent in as a sacrificial lamb. You know, whereas in the Justice League, they would not send Batman alone because of the fact that Batman would have to convince them that he has to go in alone, that there's some kind of stealth reason for something like that. They would not willingly let Batman go in alone in that sequence unless Batman convinced them that was the case. In this case, Ultraman's like, oh, I want to know a little bit more about what's going on here. My need for intel means let's send this one in. If they kill him, they kill him. It's kind of a... And she's completely all for that because of the fact that it gives her, again, that manipulative power piece over Owlman. Where if she shows any form of protection of Owlman, it gives Owlman the validation that she doesn't want him to have because it takes away her control. Everything is about manipulation. And I loved the layers of this where you're like, it's sad to say I understand them, but I do because the writing's so good and so consistent. I'd love to be a fly on the wall on the session where they're writing this book. Yeah. Saying, no, we're being a little too nice there. We need to be a little more manipulative.
Even how the wall is able to reach them.
Yes.
Power Ring is taken out, but the Ring was kind of curious. The Ring was amused. So he's like, hey, let me give you the extension. Let me give you direct contact to them because it amused the Ring itself. I was like, that is awesome. And again, I love how Superwoman, when she realizes what's going on, she gives her the respect. She's like, RESPECT. I'm like, yes. Superwoman recognized, the wall and what she's doing. And that's why part of me is like thinking there's some connection there. This scene right here was one of the scenes that kind of had me thinking there could be something going on.
Yeah.
With that Superwoman could be the ultimate goal for the wall, not Earth 3. But again, I don't know. And that's, I think, the wonderful things about this story. We really don't know yet. We're coming to the conclusion eventually of this story, and where does that play out? I don't know. I 100% am dying to know what is the wall's plans.
I love the Owlmobile was destroyed, but then we get to see the Owlman's ship. The Owlman's superpower is vengeance, and there's really some cool defining of what Owlman is, at least on this world in this particular series, where you get to find out, like, he really is not Batman. Yes. And we need to be very clear on this one, that there's certain limitations to him, but then the paranoia becomes his kind of driving force, whereas our Batman's truly is one driven by this, what happened to me is not going to happen to anybody else. His thing is, what happened to me is not going to happen to me again. And there's a huge distinction between the two. It's very self-motivated. Whereas Bruce looks outward, he's totally driven internally. People have wronged him. People are constantly trying to wrong him. They're out to wrong him. He can't trust anybody. It's a very different way of operating. We talk about Bruce's brooding and enclosed situation, and that a lot of times is because Bruce takes upon himself what he does not want to put on others, and sometimes makes the mistake of excluding others because of that. This guy, he's more than willing to work with other people if it matches his needs and motivations, but it's totally driven by him protecting himself, and he won't ever truly trust any of them. And he can never truly be trusted. It's such an interesting way of operating. Siren and Owlman with the whole owl ship piece was really, really cool to see that whole scenario. And I knew somebody was going to come in for the save, like the way that they played that out. Sometimes it's okay to be obvious about what you're going to do because the moment's satisfying, right?
Yes.
Match popping up with that Earth 3 Core 2 Hot. I didn't know it was going to be Match. I didn't know who it was going to be. But what a great sequence that was. There's sometimes where those sequences are you tease that in the way that it's playing out. I would have been so dissatisfied if she died there. The save was what I wanted. And it was totally leading to the save, and I'm glad they did it the way that they did, because Match has, again, become a favorite character of mine in all of this. And I loved seeing him come out and be the hero, even in Bizarro form.
Yes, and I can tell you, this whole sequence really does show a difference between another big dramatic difference between Owlman and Batman, because this straight-on frontal assault and all that wouldn't have been Bruce's style. Bruce would have done a different attack plan, which, instead of relying on big guns blasting and shooting, it would have been more, there would have been more strategy behind it. There would have been actually an actual battle plan. And that's how you see, again, those two dramatically different approaches that they look at life. Bruce is that intellectual, that great detective. Owlman is not the great detective. And I love how, again, they continue on other layers of stuff. But I completely agree with you on the save. Match was perfect. I was expecting a big save, didn't know who it was going to be, but you knew somebody was going to come in the end.
This dance with her and Ultraman, where she keeps pushing him and pushing him, she wants that. She wants him to completely let go and come after her because he wants her. Mm-hmm. And it's all about bringing him further and further down to be entranced by her. His ego will never let him go to the levels that she wants. Because what she really wants is him to completely be like how Owlman was with her, right? She wants him to be completely another plaything. And she's trying to crack him down psychologically. It's not about him being in love with her and them equals. It's totally about her having emotional control over him. And she wants it to be taken to that level where it's all about what she wants. Her being the center of attention, her being the center of... it's really a control play that she's doing there. And it's such an interesting thing to read because it's dark. It's something where everybody has that part of them, and you recognize it's wrong and you grow past it. They don't grow past it. They evolve it, like to the point where it becomes... It's the difference between good and evil, right? When you're good, you recognize, okay, these are negative qualities that we all have, and you learn to mature and grow past them. It's almost like this embracing of immaturity, right? Emotional immaturity. Because it's a lot... In our world, what we know is it's a lot harder to build equal trusting relationships, but that work is so worth it because at the end of the day, when you do that, you've got something so strong and such a great level of equal understanding between both people involved, whether it's lovers, whether it's friends, family. We know that is the healthy route. In this case, it's almost like that level of work is going into embracing the immaturity. It becomes this domination, emotional domination that they go for. That it's interesting to watch because this has made and continue to evolve. We talked about it recently in the conversation we had about the Crisis miniseries that was out recently about Earth 3. One of the things that I really, really love is this idea of continuing to fully realize Earth 3. I would read an Earth 3 series in an instant.
Yes, 100%.
This has me so totally captivated by this world because what's interesting about it is when you fully imagine and fully realize it, you want to see more of the larger world and how it's impacted by this. These sequences they've got me completely glued. That's the part that I really, really enjoy about this. We're seeing why this really is the anti-Justice League. That part I really like. This tete-a-tete between them would have continued if the Wall had not gotten involved. And the outrage over what she's done, it's a slap to the face of Ultraman and Superwoman there. Whoever thought it was a great idea to put Ambush Bug in all of this, I want to hug.
Yes.
Because I adore the character. Seeing him it's one of the reasons why Match is a character that I'm sad this is being canceled. Actually, the whole team. Ambush Bug being brought into the Suicide Squad was brilliant. He has been amazing. I love these sequences where Ambush Bug talks to us. Here's the thing. When writers really understand Ambush Bug, they do this. This is cool Ambush Bug. This is definitely an homage to the best of Ambush Bug. Feels very today. Feels very current. I love that at times people are walking with him and going, who are you talking to? And he'll reference previous issues and stuff like that.
Well, I read the last issue. I'm a pre-order guy.
It's such great stuff. And it's something where in the right book, in the right situation, it works to have a character like this. They do this kind of stuff with Deadpool, too, every so often, where I really enjoy it. And it's okay to break down that wall and have a little fun, because it makes this book feel different than everything else that I'm reading, and that's what I'm really embracing. But man, Ambush Bug is an MVP. If you have not read the most recent Suicide Squad series, he is so great in there.
Yes.
I really, really enjoy his presence.
And in a prior Suicide Squad issue, they had where they're on an alternate Earth where the heroes were kind of versions of the Marvel Universe, but with different names. And he's partnering up with the version of Deadpool, their version of what was Deadpool. And I love how they both look at each other and go, "Hey, are you an attractive Canadian actor underneath that?" I howled with that one. I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" And they both were breaking down the fourth wall, both taking turns talking to the comic. I was like, "Man, that is just brilliant." Those two characters. Again, it was like double the Ambush Bug. It was a great Deadpool kind of thing. Absolutely agreed completely with you. I remember when we first talked to Ambush Bug and on the show, and I was like, "What the heck did I just read?" I was like, "Huh? What is this, Sean?" And you're like, "Oh my God, this is great." I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And it's taken multiple readings, taken multiple times dealing with the character to really get and enjoy him. And I absolutely, again, completely love his usage in this book. When I saw the cover and I saw him on the cover, I'm like, "Oh yes, they're bringing in the Bug, awesome!" And even like how he got on the Suicide Squad, he showed up at Belle Reve and was auditioning for a movie role.
The great thing about Ambush Bug when you do it like this is you're seeing him in a contemporary setting. And I think understanding the character, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, because I read Ambush Bug back in the day when Ambush Bug was, like when it was current. When that first came out, it was one of those cool little fun things that came out, and I got into it at the time. But I feel like you need to understand him in the contemporary current setting in order to really get like what works about the character. Then you can read the old stuff and enjoy it. But I think you need to, it's context with Ambush Bug works the best, because the jokes are the best when they're current and they're relevant, if I'm making any sense at all.
Oh no, definitely.
I feel like this is a much more accessible way to see Ambush Bug. And then if somebody asked me, where do I jump on Ambush Bug? I would say read Suicide Squad, because that's the best way to understand him now. Then go back. If you really love the character from that, then go back, because you'll understand him and it'll make more sense. I think he's a character you just got to see in a contemporary setting. In some ways, I'd say the same thing about Deadpool, where Deadpool's great to see Deadpool now and then jump back. But Ambush Bug even more so, because he's a quirky character. He is a very, very quirky, and I love him. I mean, it's a brilliant concept. When it's done right, it can be something that adds just a lot of personality and atmosphere. This battle, because we got multiple Suicide Squads running. We got Rick Flag's group running here, going up against the giant Clayface. He's got a Zod with him. I mean, this is just such. I love how much fun they're having with this book. I'm very sad that we're seeing an ending to this run of Suicide Squad. And I don't want to make light of Titans. Please don't think I'm making light of Titans Academy, but so much of what we're seeing right now has been driven by Suicide Squad at the moment. I've loved these multiple teams of Suicide Squad, just embracing the idea of multiple Earths. Some of these characters are from our Earth. Some of these are from other Earths. Some of them from, I don't know where they're from, but I'm just glad they're here.
I'll be honest with you, I'm really liking, because in the earlier issues of Suicide Squad, the Wall, was out recruiting people from other Earths. Yep. He was sending out and getting more people, getting different people for this giant plan on Earth 3. And again, picking up a Clayface from an alternate Earth, a more monsterish, just more destructive version of Clayface. Absolutely love that. We've got the Etrigan 666, was Etrigan Brainiac 666. From that Earth, I'm like, man, they did some really cool stuff with this. this. And again, this fight sequence, just playing out with just this massive monster, Clayface monster from an alternate dimension. I'm like, oh man, this again, brilliant.
Yep. This is what I didn't. This is what I wanted from this, and I didn't know I wanted it.
Yeah.
I love when they deliver stuff like that, where they're like, "We're gonna." You know what you guys need right now? You need a giant Clayface monster.
Yes.
These are big concepts. They're cool concepts where they're playing with the multiverse. Rodriguez. And this never goes well, but it's always noble when they do it. She's injecting herself. She's like, am I really doing this? And I'm glad she's saying that, because here's what we know in the DC universe. You inject yourself with something, typically that does not go well.
Right.
And you never know what the end result's going to be. She injects herself, and we get to see her become a player in this whole scenario where she gets like Sandman-like powers. I really loved the way that, and when I say Sandman, I mean the Marvel Sandman-like powers. I really loved the way that played out in this scenario, because they're not doing well against this Clayface monster. This monster is really, they got the Cheetah, they got Zod, Peacemaker, Flag, all his whole group. They're not doing well. They're trying to use this like Phantom Zone projector to send this thing over to another world. 2 of them get pulled, including their heaviest hitter, into the Phantom Zone.
Yes, that's not good.
And I really loved how that particular component played out for this whole thing. Was Suicide Squad hits this point, and we saw it in the movies, where it really is like the Dirty Dozen, where at the end there's, how are these 3 going to take, because it's Flag, we got Peacemaker, and who's the other guy again? Why am I drawing a blank on him?
Bloodsport.
Bloodsport, yeah. I love Bloodsport's mask in this one, the way that it played into it. But there's no way that they're going to, on their own, be able to defeat it. And I loved how, even within this issue, there's mini cliffhangers in this issue that do pay off later in the issue, because then they shift in that sequence back to Match and Waller going up against Ultraman and Superwoman in a great sequence of events. And the Wall had totally planned for all of this, knowing that there's a possibility some of her people may go down in this particular session, but she certainly was not going to. She's letting Ultraman throw his tantrums, letting him do all of his piece. She is completely confident, because in that moment, she can't be touched. And she's got herself totally set up in that moment where she is not in any danger at all, but she has got something there that Ultraman would want, his Johnny Quick.
Yep. Well, not even just Johnny Quick. She's playing to the ego. She's playing Ultraman against himself, saying, hey, I'm not looking to take over. I'll do the boring stuff. You're still you. You're the most powerful being here. But I can take all the frustrations you have and make them go away just like that. And I loved how, again, she knows so much about him, knows how much he hates Owlman, knows how much that guy is just a frustrating pain in his neck. Well, she's taking care of that. And she's doing all those little things. I love this is just brilliant manipulation on her part. You use Match to slow down Superwoman. Then, she's using Johnny Quick to move her out of the way of all the strikes. And again, the Wall is just so super cool in this. She's just very calmly, but, I suppose I could die, but then you wouldn't even know why I went to all this trouble. And as he's blasting, Quick is moving her out of the way, so he can't lay a hand on her. It was absolutely wonderful. I love this, man.
Yeah, everything about it just plays out really, really well. It is Amanda Waller's at her best when you feel like she's playing a game of chess and we don't know what all the pieces are.
Yeah.
And I love when she moves something in a position like Johnny Quick. I'm like, I didn't see this coming, but man, does it make a lot of sense.
And even in that sequence, it was funny when Ultraman does finally catch Quick. You can see kind of like the way it's worded. She's changed her tone. She goes from the, hey, I'm, this, to, okay, whoa, I can explain all this. Kind of kind of changing it, because she doesn't want him snapping Quick's neck out of just sheer, because he's Ultraman, and that's the kind of stuff he does. I thought that, again, brilliant little subtle stuff in this story.
What do you think about the breaking of Owlman?
Oh, my God. Absolutely, again, throwback to Bane and all that stuff. That's just absolutely brilliant.
And the thing that I really loved about this Suicide Squad series was the evolution of Talon. You know, we got to see a Talon that came back and he's kind of mindless, but that altered over time, or wasn't what it appeared over time. And it was great to see that gradually flesh out in this series, that we're seeing a different sort of Talon. And that's something we'll talk more as we get into the Suicide Squad issue, because I think it's pretty critical what's going on here. But that breaking sequence, it never tires. And seeing it done in this context was something that was interesting. Ambush Bug. Does anybody feel totally out of place here?
Yes.
They have this great, dark moment where it's clearly not a spot for him. And I love the way Ambush Bug plays in all of this. It's where I'm sad that this is coming to an end. You get to see Rick Flag's team going to go up against what now is the Wall's new team. It is Ultraman, Power Ring, Match, Talon, Black Hand. Talon, who is the new Owlman?
Yeah, he's wearing the Owlman costume.
I mean, just a really cool sequence of events. That is your opening issue of the event.
Yeah.
Which I love that they did this as a crossover event. I like when they do these, where not every event we've talked about, we don't want every event to be like this, and I stand behind that, where I don't think every event should be these kind of crossing over between this book and that book and the other. But when they do it, and it's contained like this, it makes a lot of sense, and it works really well. Hey, you want to do the creative team for Suicide Squad number 13, and we can continue talking about this?
Yep. Let's continue on with Suicide Squad issue number 13. The writers are Dennis Hopeless and Robbie Thompson, with art by Eduardo Pansicca and Julio Ferreira, and Dexter Soy. Colors by Marcelo Mayo, Maiolo. Wes Abbott is letters. Rafa Sandoval and Alex Sinclair on the covers. Gleb Milikov, Menikov on the variant cover. Chris Rosa is the associate editor. Paul Kavinsky is editor. And part 1 is available, in War of Earth 3 number 1.
One of the things as we're looking at this, I want to commend the art teams, because they really did a great job. It's art. I know it's our team. It's editorial. There's a lot of coordination that goes on to making sure these sequences have a nice flow to them. You're dealing with different art throughout this. I never noticed it. And I don't mean that in a way to diminish the art. I feel there's something about, it's really important for art to be done in such a way where it continues the story flow. And there's an importance to that in comics. And I feel like the artwork in this is very beautiful. It's very detailed. There's a lot of action going on. There's a lot of character drama going on. And a lot of it's driven by what's going on in various action sequences and various emotional and conversational sequences. You got to get them all right. There was never, in this first part and in this second part, any kind of jarring changes. And you're dealing with, depending on the page, some different members of the art team working on those pages. So there's got to be some really important coordination going on as far as making sure that that is right. I didn't notice any sort of jarring change because of the fact that they do it obviously on a scene-by-scene basis. And the way that they coordinated this was really, really well done. Because it's a great example of proper directing of a scene, right?
Yeah.
Because it feels like very much like a film that has certain sequences being shot by different members of the team. They understand the overall picture, the overall end result, what they're looking for, and what their role is to keep this action moving forward. And they really did a great job with this because it's a very good-looking book. The action sequences, because there's so many cool things happening on this, they've got to be right. There was not a point in time in either of these issues that I felt like any of what I was enjoying was getting lost. There's a really important sense of danger to all of this. And it was something that I really, really enjoyed about this sequence. I like when you get to see some of these villains. Like this kicks off with Mirror Master. We saw him get hit pretty bad in the last issue. I'm glad that wasn't like this cartoony throwaway where it's like he's up and bouncing around like nothing's okay. He's in bad shape from that. And we see the after effects. He's bleeding from the mouth. He's he's certainly holding on to the door as he's coming out of the restroom because of the fact that he has been banged up pretty bad. I wasn't sure if they were going to like do a thing where, well, did he die there? I mean, it's Mirror Master, so you think he's going to be okay, but it's not unheard of in the Suicide Squad for people to die and somehow be resurrected. I didn't know where they were going with this. I like that there's an after effect of the beatdown that he took because it was pretty severe from Clayface.
Oh, big time. And again, I liked how they jumped from now to before, all that kind of stuff, and they were doing throughout this issue, that jump back and forth. And I thought, again, that was a really cool storytelling element of this. And I like how this beatdown isn't just from the Clayface fight. This is from the beatdown with Waller's crew. So he's been going from one bad situation to another bad situation. He, Flag, and Bloodsport are all beat up nasty. They're in a convenience store, just bleeding all over the place. I loved how the teller there is like, "Hey, you're bleeding all over the freaking store. Come on, you got to pay for that stuff." This right here was just a brilliant opening because, especially as you said, it really shows the battle damage that these guys have been through.
Yeah. And that's something, battle damage at a certain point in time, especially when you got a team called Suicide Squad, you want to believe they're in real danger and you want to see the after effects of that. And also there's this idea that even though they're villains, why are they survivors? It's because they don't give up. They truly are survivors. They will continue to fight on. They will continue to find angles to escape. They will rely on each other when necessary and be able to trust each other to a certain point, as long as it's advantageous to trust each other. When it no longer is, they can turn on each other at a dime, which is true. I feel dumb with Bloodsport not recognizing that it's Idris Elba's character from the movie.
Yeah.
But I really loved his being brought into this as well. That's why I'm hoping the fact that this has been a popular team in the media that we get more. I mean, we're getting more minis with them. We just got that Blaze mini, which is really cool.
Yeah.
We've got some cool stuff happening with Suicide Squad right now. I'm just hoping that this team continues to be brought to the forefront, and not just Peacemaker. And I say that loving Peacemaker, but the concept of Suicide Squad is really, really cool. And there's definitely room for that. You and I are big fans of Secret Six prior to this. And I feel like Secret Six really helped me understand what I should love about Suicide Squad. Because of the fact that Secret Six was a different team, so when you brought Suicide Squad in for crossovers with Suicide Squad and Secret Six, it's like, oh, wow. These villain teams are just as diverse and interesting as the hero teams. So it's cool to see them at play in a world it makes them look like Boy Scouts.
Yeah. They actually do look like heroes. You don't have to do the air quotes around the word hero when you're talking about the Suicide Squad on Earth 3, and I think that works nicely for them. And again, brilliant on that fight sequence where you can. I love when the good guys recognize, okay, we need to retreat. We need to fall back. And Flag's calling for a retreat. They're trying to escape. The bad guys aren't letting them go out way easily. And each time you go on to with Peacemaker and Ambush Bug, again, the Bug being hysterical. The Bug was the one who pulls out Peacemaker, it sends him to a piano bar, which, again, little funny bits on there, like song lyrics redacted by Warner Brothers Legal. They kept covering all the lyrics. And then even when they do pop in, Bug's on the mic. Bug's rocking the mic there. Completely cracks me up on their escape. And then you flip the page and you see what he had to escape from.
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic what you see in those sequences. And that's the part that every page you get to see these cool things. Again, seeing more cool Power Ring moments where you see Power Ring before going up against Peacemaker. And you see like he's using this, spiked bat and then using a bear trap. And it's such a cool sequence of like it's one visual cool moment after the next. You and I are both big fans of Green Lantern. And seeing the way that the core operates being twisted is something that's way cool. It's usually something that you get with the Sinestro core, but in some ways, this is even worse because there's a brutality to this. It's like a strange combination of the red and the yellow, and a little bit of green thrown in for good measure.
Well, he's playing with his food is what he's doing,
yes.
And that's the cruelty of it. You know, like with the Sinestro Corps, yeah, they've got some nastiness that they deal with, but he's just toying around with them. He doesn't really see a Peacemaker as a threat, so he's using the bat. Usually I go bigger, but hey, the shiny dome piece begs to be a base hit, and then he goes into a bear trap. And he's like, man, this is he's having fun with it, with killing Peacemaker, and I think that for me is a really cool, again, a declaration on how different this guy is from Jon Stewart. You think back to Jon Stewart, the regular Jon Stewart, the hero version. He doesn't play around. He doesn't do the little extra showboating. He has a job to do. He gets it done. He's got that architect mindset where it's that very meticulous nature. This guy is completely different than Jon, that different mindset, that different way. He's playing around. He's having fun. He's being more goofy, with killing people. And I think that, again, little subtle stuff on the different nature of these villains, of these Earth 3 characters, really does play well.
For the Wall, the mission is everything. And you get this great sequence with Rodriguez where she's got her in that tube, and she's basically like, I got no easy way to kill you. I'm underestimating you. To a certain extent, I'm a little impressed. You know how far I'll go and who I will step on to get my missions complete. At the end of the day, collateral damage is something that Amanda Waller's willing to live with because she feels somebody has to be gutsy enough to step up and make those hard decisions. And she's the one that has to live with the end result of those hard decisions. In her mind, the end result is far more important than, breaking a few eggs. to make an omelet.
You got to break a couple eggs to make an omelet, man. Yeah. And I love this sequence with her and Rodriguez because Rodriguez is just a giant pile of sand until the Wall leaves. Once the Wall leaves, that's when she goes back to form. And again, she didn't want to face her. She didn't want her to see the look of defeat on her face. And Rodriguez, for me, that one panel looks like she's like, okay, I'm done. That's it. The Wall got me. And again, I like how, again, they do the now and then you go to the before and you see how she gets captured. Because Rodriguez gets captured because she makes a sacrifice for the team. She's the reason that Flag, Mirror Master, and Bloodsport were able to escape because she, took one for the team. And I thought, again, that's a really cool moment. And it's kind of neat how everybody got one page and she got 2 pages on the before. And they really let the sacrifice play out because, again, she's using sand to go up against Ultraman. No chance. And he's like, you're using sand? Come on. What the heck? You can't do this. And great, again, beautiful artwork on just showing the shattering of her face when he turns her to glass and then punches it. And just that shattering on how horrific it is, but again, it's sand, so she really doesn't get killed. But then, it absolutely, I love that, man.
Do you think she's really consigned herself to her fate, or she's like realizing I got no choice but to try and figure out a way out of this? Because
I don't know.
I'm torn on that, and I'm not saying you're wrong. It's more of I want to throw another piece, I guess, on another log onto the fire, so to speak. As far as yes, I can see it that way, but what I also see, you're trapped in that tube. Amanda Waller. What's she going to do next? If she can't kill you, she's going to experiment on you.
Right.
If I'm in there, I'm not going to be content knowing her as well as Rodriguez does. I don't know how content I'm going to be to sit there and go, okay, Amanda Waller's one. That she may be there in the stages of grief, but if that's where she's at right now, I guarantee you what we're not seeing on screen is her saying, wait a minute, I better get out of here or else she is going to... She's going to find ways to do a whole bunch of stuff to me that I'm not going to like.
Yeah, let me clarify. One, this sequence, I loved how, as I said, she waits until the Wall leaves before she goes to human form again because she doesn't want to show. This is a better look than any look of despair, but I don't think Rodriguez is down. I think, she's once Wall leaves now, she's starting to think and she's starting to plan. We saw they've done enough laying down who this character is. She's not just going to lay down and let the Wall do whatever she wants to her. She's now working on how do I get out of this, because she's a smart, she's very intelligent. I like, this character is a solid character. She's one I don't want to see go away. She's one I'd like to see continue on for however long she can, having injected herself with the goop. Because she's on borrowed time now, and we know that. So it's kind of a neat thing there going on. So, yeah, I 100% think she's not just saying, oh, I'm done, and just giving up. She's going to fight. She's a fighter. But I loved how the fact that she didn't want to give the Wall the satisfaction of seeing her face. All the Wall's looking at is just sand. She's not looking her in the eye right now because the Wall is in the dominant position. And you don't want to give the Wall that much strength over you.
Yeah, no, I agree. How have we not talked about Brainiac 666?
I know.
So it's Brainiac combined with Etrigan.
Yes.
It's not Jason Blood, it's Brainiac has that power. Who came up with that idea? And they're brilliant.
Yes, absolutely brilliant. I love this character, and again, I love this sequence with between Match, and Nocturna.
Yep.
Just that whole layout. And again, I love how they're in hell and they're taking the moment to have a little fun. And she's like, should we try to escape? Yeah, sure. In a minute.
I like their relationship was something too that developed over multiple issues, and yes. I really liked how that turned out. The idea of me and Bizarro, you am boyfriend. Yeah. And her being able to bring him back. I prefer sequences like that where there's more to Match, where Match is able to overcome what was done to him. Because this really did a great job, and we've seen that in previous Titans offerings too with Match. This didn't throw out the window everything that worked about Match in the past. And what we're seeing in multiple DC stories right now are this idea that we've got characters. And you're seeing it in Infinite Frontier. We're seeing it in Justice League Incarnate. We're seeing the idea that there's these characters who are showing back up on the scene that have memories of everything. And they know what's been done to them. And more characters are now aware, and we're converging to this, right? This idea that this has been done to them. And Match is the same Match that we read way back when he was first introduced. The same evolution that he went through did happen with this character. The mystery for him has been, how did I wind up here? Yeah. And who am I really? That part has been really great. So when we see him in these moments with Nocturna, why do they matter more? Because this isn't some new version of Match that's being thrust on us. This is the Match that we know and love from all those years ago that is being brought into this place. It's accessible for new readers who never saw the character before. Cool. They introduce him from the ground floor and you get to know him. But for those of us that have, our stories are still valid because of the way that they're doing things now. This is an important piece. And it's why when we talked about the New 52 and the relaunch of continuity and all that, we've seen this gradual shift where we have now been adjusting the continuity so those stories happened again. Those stories mattered again. That always can happen. And I love when they do this. This is kind of the cleanup that's happening right now. Yeah. We tried this experiment with the New 52. It worked at the time as a stunt, which, let's be honest, that's what it was. It was a stunt to get new readers in, and there were some great stories that came out of that. But we're shifting back now to, let's put the puzzle pieces back into place. Let's start putting in the elements of the universe back in, and at the same time, we're moving the whole universe forward. I'm intrigued, and if this is executed well, this could wind up being really. This is an interesting summer coming up for us. And stuff like this Match sequence, it has me really excited for where things are going.
Yeah, again, it's funny, the character and just how this character grew, how within this story of Suicide Squad, continuing on what we knew of him, this is the kind of stuff that I was like, man, this is awesome. This is the thing that really locked me into how cool this series is. The fact that he's embracing that he's Match. He's not Superboy. He knows who he is, and as long as he keeps his intelligence and doesn't go into Bizarro Boy mode, he can live. and he accepts who he is, and he's even, again, he's found love here, and it was a really cool story that I was like so happy to see. And again, of all the before and after sequences, I love how this was probably one of my favorite ones, because yes, they are in hell, but they're going to take a moment to enjoy the reunion. And even just how the reunion happened. She's getting ready to do the bitey bite on the wall. Of course, the wall is completely calm because she knows she's got backup, but it's Match who snatches her away. And the wall knows, okay, if anybody can free Match, it's her. And he's like, she even says no, because she wanted somebody else to stop. She didn't want to lose Match. And she's lost Match. She's like, okay, I got to take that piece off the puzzle, but I still have enough, I have enough in play here. This for me was a great, Match, Noctura, and also a great wall moment.
Gotham City now. And you get this great sequence with Talon, where Talon has been great to follow because it's been a gradual evolution to this point. Is it Kulabra or Sulabra? I
always call her Kulabra, is how I always do it, but I know I'm mispronouncing it.
How are you getting the A out of the E?
As I said, I mispronounce it.
Yeah. I'm not, and that wasn't, let me be clear off of that. That wasn't me disputing you. I guess I was wondering if there was something you knew that I didn't.
No.
I was asking the question versus mocking you. Let me put it
No. Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I just when I first read the character, it was like the Kupla Kabla, that mystic beast thing that is in a lot of the Mexican lore and this and that. So I kind of took it from that, and then just Kulabra is how I, took it. And I have no idea how to actually pronounce her name. And I think in a prior issue, they actually broke it down and she explains how to say it, if I'm remembering correctly. And I even, with those explanations, I was unable to really gather a confidence saying this is how you say it. So, okay, but here's the thing. She's an awesome character. And I'll be honest with you, if anybody knows, please let us know how to properly pronounce it, because I would love to actually call her by her true name, because she's a great character. This is another one of those characters that, kind of like, completely caught me off guard and completely surprised me on how neat she is.
Yeah, this isn't helping me out. Kulera. I don't know.
Kulera.
I don't know how true that is for this particular. I just looked it up. How you can do those pronunciations. That didn't really help me much. I dig her. It's why I care about pronouncing her name right. I love this idea that she died.
Yes. And
now she's able to enter into the body of Owlman, who's not, they realize he's a dope. He doesn't know anything about computers or technology. They're assuming he's Batman. Yeah. So, he's going to be able to, do some kind of major strategy and be able to, I've got all these files and things. And it turns out he's a dolt.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, she realizes through his paranoia, he really does have a way to be able to beat Ultraman, which is something that they can utilize later. So that was cool. It wound up, there is a payoff to his usage.
Well, and I'll tell you, when her first death happened, when they were fighting actually in hell, and she dies, and she sees her own soul, go into hell. And I love just that whole sequence that they had. That was a couple issues ago, and I love just the sheer horror on her face was that when she realizes, yes, I really am the bad guy. When I died, I went to hell. And how she even, starts making this claim, I'm going to do something to redeem myself. And that was the birth of her basically being part of the Rick Flag team.
Yep.
And I loved how, again, that character, she's like, when she was a little girl, she was dying. Her family didn't have anything. So, of course, the corrupt business comes in, says, hey, we can cure her, but we got to experiment on her. So she became a human guinea pig. And that gave her her powers. That's what changed her. But she always wanted to be the good guy, and she never was. And now she's got her chance. And I love just this sequencing, on the now and the before. It's not until you realize, it was the neat thing. I didn't realize that this version that was standing there was her dead phantom version of her. I actually thought that was her standing there. And I thought that for me was a really cool kind of moment where, no, it's not. I'm like, oh my God, that is awesome.
Hey, the Warner Brothers, the Warner Media and Discovery merger, it looks like the Discovery shareholders approved it.
Oh, cool.
So I wonder if that means, I'm hoping that means I hope that means positive things, like more access to more content versus selling off components and things like that, as they do the merger. So I'm hoping for things like HBO Max just having more content. Because sometimes these things lead to chopping off certain. There was rumors at a certain point in time that they were looking to sell off this component. The gaming component in particular was one that I've heard that they were looking to chop off. But then I heard that that's off the table. I'm hoping that they don't look to pare back. They look to only expand the availability of content, because that seems to be the thing with these streaming services merging together. Seems to be this idea of, and I'm getting this from our friend Russell. He sent that out to us, and I appreciate that. I do worry about what is the state of the comic book publishing portion of it, because that seems to be one that comes up in their gaming section, which seems to be a strange kind of thing. Why would you want to lose access to the talent that is creating content in an era where, look at what movies are doing real well right now. There's something to be said for right now. What's drawing people to the box office? It's Batman, it's Spider-Man, it's these type of movies that are drawing people out. And I worry about multiplexes and things like that. But they're tapping into comic book properties. It's all over Amazon Prime. It's all over. Every one of these streaming services have some form of comic book related content on their sites. They're looking for new resources for story. The movie slate that's coming up over this year, there's been some shuffling of the movie slate. And did you see we're getting Shazam this year now?
Yes.
And Black Adam's being moved to the fall. It's going to be Black Adam first, then Shazam that are coming out.
Right.
So that shuffling out there is kind of cool. But if you take a look at it makes sense as far as, it'd be cool to see a Black Adam movie and then a few months later see a Shazam movie. So the holiday season, I think, is going to be really cool. But I don't know. The merger, the only thing that worries me about it is that somebody makes a dumb choice about what they think is expendable content. Everything I've heard recently has been that nobody's looking to chop anything up. It's just about more accessibility of more consolidation and accessibility of more content. Discovery stuff being a part of HBO, I'm all for that. So I don't know. I will be anxious to see where things go. At this Fortress of Solitude sequence where we see Ambush Bug. Look at all this cool stuff. He's even got his little baby spaceship in here. I've always had a diaper-related question about that trip.
Bug.
He is so awesome. But then you go to this darkness of tiny people screaming inside Kandor that is like chained up. I mean, the visual there is...
It's not the Superman brought them there to save them. It's Ultraman brought them there to torture them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's really, really cool. Then you get this sequence with Superwoman versus the two of them. This recognition of the fact that she is in a position where this event going on can put her, and it goes back to some of what you said earlier. There is a power play to be had here. She wants to make a power play. The Wall wants to make a power play. Is there an opportunity for the two of them to work together? Maybe, maybe not in that scenario. I don't see her taking a backseat to the Wall at all. I see the Wall being able to manipulate her desires. I see this team being able to kind of manipulate her desires. The problem is they seem to realize that she's a wild card and they're planning for her.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, I loved how, again, you see her rationale behind it. Because, again, the woman broke my favorite toy, which is, Ultraman, murdered my pet, which was Owlman. She would have completely destroyed the Wall, but Ultraman stood in the way. I love just how that sequence there, again, it really does show her motivation. And again, if anybody can take somebody who wants to kill them and make them an ally or make them do what they want, it's the Wall. The Wall 100% it can manipulate this situation and take control of the scenario. And I do think that's the case, but I don't know for certain.
Except Superwoman. If there's somebody who's a master manipulator on the level of the Wall, that's what she is at the core.
True. Yeah.
So it's an interesting scenario here where you've got somebody who really can go toe-to-toe with the Wall in this kind of realm, because it's who she is like the Wall, it's who she is at the core.
Yeah.
So if this team really needs their own Wall, it's kind of Superwoman. that would be my go-to as far as if you're looking for somebody who could possibly handle that, which makes sense why they want to take her out. So Johnny Quick and Siren and what ends up playing there, it winds up being this interesting turn of events. What a cliffhanger there, because Peacemaker and Ambush Bug almost have Superwoman on their side, where they're like, listen, let's team up here because it's to all of our advantage, and she's listening to them. And rightfully so, because everything they're saying makes sense. It actually is a win-win for all of them if they were to team up and for her to win. But who knows how that's going to play out?
Well, we know the Bug will be fine because it's the Bug, and we know Superwoman will be fine. And though Peacemaker is the only question, but to be honest, he had a building dropped on him, but he'll be okay against Peacemaker.
Well, the Bug already took care of the reasoning why he's going to be okay.
Right, he's a big movie star.
That's exactly.
And they need him for part 3.
But boy, what a great cliffhanger, right? Because at least you have a sense of, okay, how are they going to get out of this? What are they going to do next? That part is way cool.
And then continued in Flash, which, again, I didn't realize they were pulling Flash into this, but that makes sense because you're dealing with alternate Earths. Flash is your go-to with that kind of stuff. So I want to see how Flash plays into this. Yeah,
this crosses over into Flash. This cover crosses over into Titans Academy. And it obviously just crossed over into the final issue of Suicide Squad. So this isn't
the final issue.
Is there an issue 14?
There's an issue 15. There's 14 and 15.
Is it part of this crossover?
15 is the final one. And I don't know if 14 and 15 are part of this story or not. I'm not 100%. But there is a 14 and 15.
Got it. Oh, I thought it was wrapping. I don't know why I thought that this was... No, you're right. It's ending in May. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm glad, because there's actually... I'd like to see these books have a... I thought this was ending in this particular miniseries. I don't know why I got that idea. Cool crossover.
Yes, big time.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought that they were just using the crossover as a way to end this. I'm glad that there's a clear ending point to all of this. Well, and timing-wise, actually, May makes me look at this as this is part of a larger plan, because that would be... Now we're heading into summer, and we're heading into Dark Crisis. So wrapping these up in May leads towards relaunches at the end of Dark Crisis or during Dark Crisis.
Exactly.
So it seems like there's a potentially a story-driven plan with this as well.
Oh, and Teen Titans Academy ends in issue 15 as well.
Yeah, well, it all makes sense for it all wrap up in May right before Dark Crisis. I wasn't thinking about how that would align it with Dark Crisis. I wonder what that's going to look like. I admittedly have been staying away from too many previews to Dark Crisis other than what I should be prioritizing my reading on to prepare for Dark Crisis. I know that like Justice League Incarnate and stuff like that, I need to make sure I'm fully caught up on so I'm ready to go because that's a prelude leading into it. And obviously the death of Justice League is going to be a big moment. Pay attention to what I need to make sure I'm caught up on because I want to be ready for Dark Crisis. Yes. I want to jump into Dark Crisis and follow it as it's in real time, as whatever crossovers to it. Are you ready for another Crisis? I mean, like, is this, like, time-wise, does this feel like a good time to be having a big event this summer come? I mean, we've got another couple months, but, I mean, really, we're in March right now. The opening salvo of all this seems to be the death of the Justice League. Yeah,
I'll be honest, I'm 100% ready for a big, massive crisis or big event, kind of summer event type of thing. I think, again, in how they're playing this out with this tie-in, multiple, crossovers, multiple events building towards just something big is coming. I like this. I'm liking the feel of this, and I'm all for it. And it's funny you say, we're getting close to summer. It's March, and I look out the window and I see snow, and I'm like, yeah, it is March. It's Cleveland. It's snow. So, yeah, it's springtime. Let's get ready for summertime.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this. It's I'm glad that in the day and age of a much larger digital focus that we're still doing summer events and thinking of the summer as that time because it really that is a part of summer to me is the idea of a big story. And it's been a while since we've had a big DC Universe story. We've had, you could argue that Death Metal was more of a DC Universe story, but that still felt like because it was a sequel to Metal. It felt like, I know Wonder Woman was the lead, but it did feel like a Batman story, if that makes any sense. So this Dark Crisis feeling like a multiversal DC Universe, let's play with the sandbox kind of event, this is the right time for this, because we've had a few years where we haven't had something like this on this level. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for something that is universe shaking. Like let's shake it up a little bit. Let's play with the snow globe,
Yep.
and really have some fun with this. And I hope it's something that is marketed the right way, that it gets people to try some of this out, because I think DC's producing some really good product right now. This is a great example of it. I'm not hearing a lot of noise around this one. And it's why I wanted to talk about it, because a chance to talk about these books. I heard that both books were being canceled, and I mistakenly thought it was going to be during this event. I'm glad. I'm happy for another couple issues. This event will end, and then they'll wrap up these series in a way that I'm sure will be satisfying from the quality of the writing. But I'm actually more hopeful. It makes me smile more that it's happening in May, because you can see how the universe is kind of converging to Dark Crisis then. And I'm hoping these writers have an opportunity to, I'm not sure what the plans are for them beyond this. I'm hoping they have the opportunity to do something in wherever this is all going, because these books have been very satisfying for me, and I would like to see them experiment with something, either this similar properties or something else. Man, I want to see more Ambush Bug somewhere.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was something I was going to say spinning out of Suicide Squad.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
How you doing, Sean and Jim? Yes, I want to talk to you guys about the Comixology debacle. Now, I'm a Prime member, and I didn't have any these type of interruptions like most people did. My friends over there at the Leading the Substitute podcast was devastated by this, because they are having all kinds of problems. Like I said, I didn't have any problems, but I would like to say this. Why come when the brain trust take over something? All they had to do is implement the old way it was working. No one likes this new way, hardly. I'm not a tech guy, so any change for a computer to me is monumental. That's why I don't deal with computers. I didn't start messing with computers since I was about 42 years old, so I'm way behind. Just leave well enough alone. Or like you said, Sean, let the legacy version stay up and give us a choice to use it, and then you can seam into the new one once you get used to it. Now, I didn't kind of get used to it, but I had to, mark a few things red, but most of my stuff was, I would say I was like 96% intact. And then I had to figure out, they merge books together, say for instance, like you had like 10 G.I. Joe books. They'll stack them on the top of them, and you'll see a little number 10 in there. I didn't know that at first. I'm like, where are my G.I. Joe books at? But, I figured it out. I'm fine. So Amazon, in the future, when you want to change something, let us have the legacy versions, and then you can implement your new version, and then we can all move on, and then people can decide what they want to do. But let's talk about some good news. Some great books coming out. I'm hoping everybody's picking up the new Black Panther book from Marvel. Emma's got a new book out called Sci-Fi. That's amazing. Need to be out there picking that up. There's the book has been out for about 8 months, but it's in the trade now. It's a book called The Shadow Doctor. It's from a company called Aftershock. The premise of this book is in the Prohibition era, Al Capone used a black doctor to heal his soldiers when they would get wounded by kind of forcefully. It's a 5-issue miniseries, and it's a true story, so I think you guys need to check it out. It's called The Shadow Doctor. I'm looking forward to the new Earth 3 5-part crossover from DC. That's what I love, that Earth 3, anything with Earth 3, I love it. I wish DC would just let that Earth be around 12 months of the year. The next thing we got coming up is the cancellation of Teen Titans Academy, and we also going to be losing the Suicide Squad, which is a shame. I guess they'll be coming back, at least the Suicide Squad. But Teen Titans Academy, I do not know. Hopefully we get that in a new Teen Titans or a Titans book, because the DC Universe, kind of like with the JSA, it's just really not the same when those two books, along with the Legion of Superheroes, are not around. So those books need to be done. They're going to have to fix the Green Lantern comic books according to all the Green Lantern fans, because most people is not feeling the new run. I am, but most people want to see, like Jim wants the corpse back. They need a book with the corpse in it with all the alien races, because people just not feeling the Earth matches. So DC's going to have to fix the Lantern problem. They fixed the Aquaman problem with the new Aquaman book. That book is going to be amazing. Hopefully it can have a long, healthy run of at least over 35 issues so we can get some good stuff going, give the people some chance, get the wheels on it. And then I would like to go back to Amazon for a minute and video games in general. Listen, as I was saying, it's about time someone steps in and do something about companies releasing product that they know is broken, but we're going to patch it up. No one wants a product that's broken when you got to wait 24 hours for a patch. It'd be like selling a person a car with 3 wheels or a car with no battery and tell you, well, we'll ship that to you later. That's unacceptable. And we need to stop supporting these companies that's doing this, keeping us, you buy a new video game, you can't work it, you can't use it because it needs a patch. You got all this time in development. Some of these games take 4 years of development. You mean you can't make the game work when you first get it into your machine? And you guys know I usually don't complain about stuff, but that stuff should not be happening. Stop doing that. We need to stop supporting them. Somebody needs to step in and have somebody do something about it. But guys, you guys keep on putting out this great podcast. You guys keep on raising love what you're doing. Y'all have a great day.
All right, Jonathan, I got one more book you guys have to read. Since you guys are big fans of the Batman, it's a book out from Dark Horse called Cloak. And it's about a character like the Batman who has sidekicks, but sidekicks have repercussions for hanging out with this character. So check this book out. It's called Focus from Dark Horse. It's a 4-issue miniseries, and it's amazing. You guys have a pleasant day.
It's funny, he talks about Dark Horse. Dark Horse has done a great job over the years of putting out unique and interesting superhero product. It's not there was a long time where you didn't consider Dark Horse to be a company that you would go to for superhero product. They kind of covered everything else. But they have had some really interesting explorations over the years of superhero concepts in unique ways and tried to stand out when they touch on that market as being an alternative source of superhero stories, where they're taking some tropes and concepts that haven't been really tackled and really deep diving into them. So I'm actually, that Cloaked series, there was a number of them. I was jotting down everything that he was saying because Russell makes some really good recommendations. I'm like, okay, I'm not reading everything that he's mentioned here. Let me try some of these out and check and see. And they're always good. So I appreciate you calling in, Russell, with all of those. He mentions a couple things, he goes into Comixology again, and I couldn't agree with him more on it being a debacle, and an unnecessary one, because I'm at the point right now where I feel like I'm starting to navigate a little better, but I'll give you a great example. So this week we talked about The War from Earth 3 and Suicide Squad number 13. Did you have trouble finding Suicide Squad 13?
I'm starting to get the hang of ordering stuff now. It's one of the, I'm starting to get a comfort level and organization on this stuff. So if you go to Amazology, the actual site, to do the order, there is a new release section.
But hang on. This is what I'm asking though. Was Suicide Squad 13 in the new releases for you? Because it wasn't for me.
I thought it was.
Or did you have to search for Suicide Squad 13?
No, when I bought it within the new release stuff.
Okay.
I was able to find it. And because, again, what I did was there's that new release section. They've got the date range, and then it's initially defaults all publishing. I click on that, then I click on DC only, and I just had the DC stuff. And then all the DC stuff popped up, and I was able to click on it. Now, the one thing I don't like is it's one click buy like that. I'd rather select everything, throw it to a cart, and then do one lump payment of X dollars instead of multiple individual transactions, because my credit card company keeps saying, hey, you have multiple small dollar payments to the same location. Did you mean to do this? And I'm like, yes. So whenever I'm ordering my comics now, through them, every single time, I always will get a fraud alert notice from the credit card company. And I'm like, thanks, guys, for looking out for me, but this is okay. But again, if I could do one large payment of all the money together, that would make things easier on me. So it's little stuff like that I'm still working on, trying to figure out. And just planning for the reading today, what I do now is I have nothing in my unread filter on iZilla. So anytime I buy something, it goes into unread. So I can find it easier. And then I go through and I download everything that's unread and then mark it as read. And so I keep my unread filter always empty so I can find what I buy. And same thing like when we're getting ready to talk about something, I mark it as unread so it goes into there so I can use that filter. So there's extra steps I have to do now. But again, it's figuring this out, learning what you need to do for this stuff. So I'm still learning, and I'm trying to figure out how the best way to do it. So I don't know.
Here's where we had a different experience. I'm in new releases right now. I did a search for DC, March 7th to March 13th, which was last week, straight on through to today's date, right? I've got, when I'm looking at all the issues here, Suicide Squad is not a choice here for me. I had to search because I knew Suicide Squad 13 was coming out, and it was coming out this week, but I had to use an outside site to know that that was the issue I was looking for. And I had to do a search for it. What they do have now, which is okay, I guess, the Flash issue's up for me to order, the next week's issue. But I did not get Suicide Squad 13 in my new releases at any point in time when I was searching this week. And I do the same thing you do. So I searched for DC as the publisher. Then I went through and I did everybody, the whole thing and searched through. Suicide Squad never showed up for me as a new release. That to me is broken. Like where you've got a single book that like now I'm glad it showed up for you, which means
here's why it should. Okay, Suicide Squad 13 is listed as the February 28th to March 6th order.
But that wasn't when it came out.
But yeah, I know. But that's where it appears, and that's when I saw it. So that's how when I did the filter, it was when I was ordering. Then is when it pops up. So the same week that Earth 3 War for Earth 3-1, that week is when they have listed Suicide Squad 13.
Which is nuts because that's not when it came out.
Right, but
same thing. The Flash issue isn't out yet.
Right.
So the Flash issue is showing up as listed for March 7th to March 13th, but that actually doesn't come out till this week. So this is where it's broken. Like, I did not go searching February 28th to March 6th because I already bought that week the books that I was looking for. I didn't grab Suicide Squad on that. I get that you did, but I was waiting for this week to do it. I mean, things have to coincide with when they're actually being released. It's an interesting. It's broken, like in the way that it did not work that way on Comixology. And that's part of the issue that I agree with what Russell's saying on. We have done this switch now where I'm with you, actually, and I think you're being very fair, and I think you're right. I'm having an easier time navigating this. So because I knew the book was coming, I was able to do a search for Suicide Squad, and I found it. There's some things that I actually like about this, like some of the recommendations being outside, in and out of comics, I think is kind of cool, where I'm being pointed to sometimes to some reading product that is outside of traditional comics because it's linked to some of the things that I'm looking for. The search by publisher works real well for me as long as the publisher's designated, but in some cases where they're indies, they aren't. So it's a lot harder to distinguish some of those, and I felt that was easier on Comixology in the way that it presented itself. I don't hate this now. I feel like I'm getting more and more used to it than I did before, but it goes back to, and Russell pointed out some of my comments about this, I'm used to, like, when there's a changeover in tech, there being a legacy version that you can click on for a certain amount of time. And the idea is, we're going to give you some hand-holding while you can still access the old version while the new version's active, so that way you can get used to how things are going to go look. The nice part is, in order to make sure you're not missing anything, use both versions for now. That way you're used to what the new version's going to look like, and then you'll be set. I'm a fan of that kind of approach. And it's the same thing with the app. The app has like a legacy version that is still available to you while you're using the new interface. So that way you can kind of ease yourself into, okay, let me play around and experiment with the new interface. They usually give you a drop dead time by like this amount of time. We're going completely over to the new version, so get used to it. The legacy version's over there is a little bit of hand-holding along the way. That's my preference. They didn't do it this way. I don't hate this. I just feel like I feel like on my end, it's more of, okay, because I know how to navigate Amazon.com pretty well, I'm able to get past this without an issue. It's really relying on the fact that you know how to use Amazon a lot more than you did Comixology. I feel like I'm getting used to it. I didn't lose any. Did you lose any books?
No, I did not lose any books, so that is a plus.
Same here.
Initially, I thought I did, which angered me, but I found everything, and I'm like, okay, there it is, okay. And again, the organization of it is still, I absolutely hate how it's organized. All my books are organized on the computer. On iZilla, I got it down so that I can work with it. There's still some stuff that kind of annoys me, like all the convergence issues are individually listed, whereas before they were under a convergence subtotal, and then all the books were inside it. So it's like I've got Convergence and Convergence Aquaman, Convergence Batgirl, Convergence Batman and Robin, whereas before all those were listed under just one single convergence spot. But again, that's just simple organizational nonsense. That's a nothing. So as I said, I use download for stuff I haven't read. Anything I buy, I download it immediately, and so now I use the filter of download to get the books I haven't read. And then I can kind of dance that way. Whereas I didn't have to do that before. I'm like, okay. So it's free. iZilla is a lot better organized than the actual computer itself. When I go into the my library on the computer, it's just absolutely, I can't figure out how the heck there's no grouping. There's absolutely no grouping at all of the books. They're all the individual issues. I'm like, no, take all of the Action Comics books and put them in a single folder. Group. It's I don't know.
I will say this as a positive for anybody out there. I've had a lot of luck with Amazon support in the past, not for this particular concept, but when I've received orders and things like that from Amazon, or even digital orders of other types of product. If I've had an issue, I've reached out to Amazon support, and they've always been accommodating. If you're noticing you have books missing or things like that, make sure to reach out to Amazon support and let them know. Their support usually is really good. Sometimes you'll get their tier 1 support where it's the person that needs to bump you up to somebody, and all they would say is don't give up until you're satisfied. But they will support you and they will get you your stuff. So if you feel like you've lost something, whether you're right or wrong, and it doesn't matter either way, if you can't find your stuff, they will help you with how to find your stuff. And it's an important thing to do. So don't feel like you shouldn't take that route. You've paid for it. It's your stuff, and they will help you through it. And it's the right thing to do. So don't throw in the towel. Have them guide you through some of this if you're struggling. Because I've heard very similar to what Russell's saying, where I've heard people who've said that they're missing stuff. I'm largely suspecting, and this is no knocking anybody, that stuff still shows as things that you've ordered, and either one of two things is happening. Either because of the new interface you can't find it, or there may have been something wrong in the transition, and they will make sure your stuff populates. So whatever the case is off of this, not having seen your screens, I can't tell you what it is. Reach out to Amazon and put it on them that, like, hey, I want my stuff. I paid for it, and it's a good thing to do. That's usually the first thing to ease your mind is, okay, I've got everything. All right, I can get used to a new interface as long as I know what I paid for, and I can be confident that stuff is there. This is always the big fear with digital from the get-go, and it's something where we have to take a much more active role when transitions like this happen. The nice part about this Comixology Amazon thing is I don't think Amazon's going anywhere. So the thought of losing our books is not a huge concern of mine, in the sense that the company's going to be around. And as long as the company's going to be around and keeps evolving, our stuff will still be available to us. It's if the company folds that, what does that mean for my stuff that doesn't have a backup option? Because some of the comics on Comixology, you have the option to download like a CBR and things like that for files of them. There's a digital file you can download. It's usually not the larger publishers, though, that allow that. It's your more independent publishers that give you that option to have a physical digital version, if that makes any sense, to own. So definitely stick up for yourself. Let them know that, and be kind when you're, remember these people that are in the support end, they didn't do this to you. They're just trying to do their job and help you. So reach out, let them know your situation. Be as specific as possible, especially if you can name specific books that you're missing. Even if you don't know all of them, if you can say, here's an example of some of my books that I'm missing. Can you track this down or tell me what I'm doing wrong in order to find my books? Do that. Reach out, get your stuff. That will help take some of the anxiety out of it when you know you've got the things that you've ordered. They should be able to pull back up your previous orders, though, because all of those should be linked to your Amazon account, and you should be set. So this is something we're going to keep following along the way, as it's relevant. And we'll talk further about it, but I agree with him on those points. He mentioned something about video games being released, and it's funny, having grown up with companies like Nintendo who tend to wait before they publish things. Even in that case, there have been bugs in games ever since games have been out there. Like, there's some of them that the bugs have led people to be able to do crazy little tricks in games. Sometimes when they do the new releases of some of those classic games, I'm going back to the old NES games. Remember those days?
Yep.
There was sometimes cartridges that had a bug that allowed you to do like wacky things that you actually were more successful in the game because you could do those things. You weren't supposed to be able to do it, but you could. You could go through like this debug mode. And those used to be fun things to find. There's a difference between a game that has a few bugs because they were missed because of the sheer breadth of the game. A game that's released that's broken. An example of a game that was released that was considered broken by many was like Cyberpunk, which was by the company CD Projekt Red that did the Witcher games. So that game is kind of famous right now for it. It was released to consoles in the way that it's released to the PC market. So The Witcher, when it came out years ago, The Witcher 3 I'm talking about, which is an incredibly popular game, that game was really buggy when it was released. And it was eventually patched over time, and now is this, like, CD Projekt Red continues to patch them. And these types of game releases, for those of us that have been, like, PC gamers, we're kind of used to games that need to be patched up and cleaned up along the way. If you're a console gamer, which I also am too, your expectation of a console game is a lot more polished by the time you receive it. I feel like there's a happy medium of what we're willing to accept in a first release of a game with the fact that they can patch them. It should still be the best attempt to release a polished game, to Russell's point. Then any patches that come afterwards are about fixing the little bugs that you would miss when you're dealing with something of such a large scale, to polish and clean it up and add additional content and sometimes functionality. Sometimes they'll fix control schemes and things that they thought were a winner and players didn't like. I like that. I like the idea of them going back and saying, well, we can make this a little better. Those things, I do want them to patch as they go forward when they realize that they made a mistake or something had too high of a difficulty. And people aren't able to properly complete it or something. I'm cool for that kind of thing. It's an interesting... Have you ever bought a game where it was released so buggy that you just got frustrated and had buyer's remorse? Has that been a thing? I don't know, if our experience...
No, I don't think so. Because, again, you think about with me and buying games, mm-hmm. I buy them after everyone's been talking about how awesome they are, after the bugs have been worked out, and after reading about seeing the YouTube stuff and all that kind of thing. So I've never really been the guy who buys it as it's hitting the ground, as it initially comes out at launch. I think the closest I came to that kind of stuff was City of Heroes when they did the villains, because that one I was in on the ground floor on. Yeah. And that one really didn't have a lot of bugs in it. It had some moments where there was some glitches that I was dealing with, but nothing too major.
You know what that was lacking initially was content.
Yeah.
That was a big criticism of that. And I'm usually an early adopter. I like to pre-order stuff and be in the ground floor, and I do it with operating systems and things like that. I like the preview. I like playing with the new toys, knowing that in that experience I'm going to have some frustration because things aren't quite ready for prime time. So I get what he's saying. I actually agree with him. I think when you release it to the larger consumer market, you should aim for as polished as possible, knowing that, these games, our expectation now on games are we want these rich open worlds where you can be immersed for 100 hours or more, or sometimes, like City of Heroes, for example, that would be an ongoing game that would be continuing to grow and evolve and add new content and stuff to it. But you expect a certain amount of guaranteed enjoyment and playability. Your approach is a good one, where it's like, I'm going to kind of wait and see until I hear, people saying thumbs up and it's ready to go. If you're not comfortable with that, and that's not a great answer. I believe in my mind, I think there's a difference between console release and PC Mac release, where people, I think, expect a certain amount of tinkering with those two platforms because they're tinkering their machine, they're adjusting their settings, they want to be able to push above and beyond. And I grew up with that type of gaming where I knew that there was going to be a lot required of the user and a lot of patience required as they patch things and try to be able to account for the different platforms. The reason why I think consoles are different and the expectations for consoles should be different, with a console you're dealing with a stable platform. Like, what the specs are of a PlayStation 5, of a PlayStation 4, of a Nintendo Switch, of an Xbox. You know that those have a certain specification. So if you say this game's ready to run on Xbox Series X, you know that platform is going to function and behave the same, or should function and behave the same for everybody, as long as the game has been optimized for that platform. So I think there is a difference between, like, console expectations, right? I mean, like, you've got a PlayStation 4, right? You play that Astroneer game. Am I saying that one right?
Yeah.
So you have an expectation that game is just going to perform really well on your machine when you boot that up, and then you're not going to have to do a whole lot of tinkering to make that happen. Whereas I do think when you're using a PC or a Mac platform, you expect a certain level of tinkering. I mean, I think that adjusting system settings, because of the fact that not every Mac has the same specs, not every Windows PC has the same specifications. So I think it's a different sort of, because you've been a PC gamer, so you know what that looks like, and I think there was an expectation of a different experience.
Yeah, definitely when you look at that. And it's, again, for the longest time I wasn't a PlayStation guy or an Xbox guy. I did the PC games. I did the brief Mac games. When I had the Mac initially, I had some games for the Mac, and there wasn't a lot of games. All the games I really wanted to play were PC only. They weren't Mac. I'm like, dang it. So that's what brought me over to the PC world, and I started doing PC gaming. And then I kind of got done with the PC gaming, and I was like, you know what? I like the functionality of the Mac better. So I left PC and went back to Mac. And then I was like, I want to, I'm watching on YouTube these different games. I'm like, you know what? Let me get the PlayStation a try. And it was when PlayStation 4 is when I went into console gaming, and so then, so I've had the different experiences. And again, I do like there's some stuff where I do miss some of the PC gaming, because some of the stuff that it was easier for me to work a keyboard and a mouse click than it is to use the controls, but also I do like some of the PlayStation games, just some of the neat visual stuff that I didn't get on the PC side. So, and as you said, plug and play instead of doing update. Oh, we got this fixed. We got all these things. Usually with the console games, you have less updates that you need to do. You're just running the game and you're good to go. Like Astroneer, occasionally, every so often, they do updates, but when they do an update, they do a content update. So they're changing the content. So I got a new event I can do. I've got this thing I can do. So I'm okay with having to do an update if you give me something new. If you're just have to keep fixing stuff, that would annoy me.
Yeah, there's a certain I think there is a certain expectation as far as nowadays what you should be getting with your platform. Similar to how we talk about delays with comics and things like that. I'm not against a delay of comics or games or anything like that if it's what's needed for release schedule or things like that. It's funny, we're going to be talking about Camelot 3000 starting next episode, and we're going to do a 2-episode deep dive into that series as part of our 16th year anniversary. We've been doing it a long time.
Yes.
I was reading the foreword to that by Mike W. Barr. of the collected edition. And he was talking about the fact that at the time, it was one of the first maxi series. It was one of the first direct market exclusive series where it wasn't available on the newsstand. It was the higher quality paper. The idea was this was a different production value quality, and they were tailoring to the direct market, which was on the rise at that time. It was, comic shops were starting to become a new thing, and really were starting to make some noise as being they wanted to pull people into comic shops. So that way this direct market continued to grow, and they had exclusive product to direct market that was very successful. Well, Camelot 3000 was one of those series. But what he was talking about was how he had told them at the time that perhaps they should have a few issues in the can before that thing kicks off. And there were some delays in some of the later issues of Camelot 3000 because they didn't do that. We as readers talk about that all the time about, it's when do you delay a series? When's the right time to do it? And I always err on the side of it breaks up the story when there's long delays between issues. So if there's a possibility the creative team talent that you're going to have on there is not going to be able to keep up with the intended release schedule, it's always better to delay the series launching if you can. That becomes hard when it's a continuity-driven miniseries, right? You have these long continuity-driven ones that sometimes are a 12-issue series, and if that gets delayed, it sometimes will affect an entire relaunch of a line because that story sometimes needs to align with your new direction that you have in place and leads to some interesting challenges. So it was interesting to see him talk about that piece. And I think that's where this discussion relates to comics as far as when do you make delays? What are the impact of those delays? When do we put things out when they're supposed to be? And it's an interesting challenge because there's also, when it hasn't been released, and there's a business aspect to it. When a game hasn't been released, when a comic hasn't been released, it's not making money. It's costing money. You are paying the people involved and you're not bringing in any revenue relating to that product yet, except potentially pre-orders. And I don't know how pre-orders translate into monetary availability for the company. If that is something that they get, depending, when they're going through the PlayStation store, the Xbox store, things like that, Nintendo store, do they get that money right away? And what happens with cancellations in those particular cases, if there's delays? So I know for comic companies, we're not able to pre-order. We can let our comic shop know that, hey, we want that. But we're not doing a whole lot of pre-ordering in advance, except for when things are delayed. Like, for example, for DCBS and stuff like that, where you put a deposit, not a deposit, you actually put your payment down. There's times where you'll pay for your monthly allotment, and there's books that sometimes get pushed 3 to 6 months down the road. That will get canceled, and you have to resolicit and pay for it. It's interesting. It's an interesting sort of topic. I get his point. I think unfortunately, there's not a clean answer to it, is there?
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype, where you can call us. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address if you prefer to contact us that way. RagingBullets.com is our show website, where you'll see all the new episode releases. It feeds into Twitter. It feeds into our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community, and I really want to thank everyone that posts there because it is one of my first places for news. So I want to thank everyone for keeping that to be a safe and fun location. The About Us section of our show website is where you find out how to connect with us on gaming platforms and social media. We love to connect with you. We are sponsored as always by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have the Absolute Swamp Thing by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson, 50% off, only $50. And we also have Batman Court of Owls Mask and Book Set, the new edition, 50% off, only $17.49. Thank you, DCBS.
I have the previous edition of that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a really neat... Did you get that last time around when it came out?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they re-released that for people, because the Court of Owls seems to keep having resurgences, and if people miss that one, it's really neat. You actually can get it's actually your own Court of Owl mask, and it's wearable.
Yes.
So I don't I do not wear it during podcasting. You would hear me muffled, but it's it's a very cool mask.
But when I go out, when I go out at night, you gotta wear a mask. So so there you go. That's my mask.
Well, you dress to the nines though, right? Because in the Court of Owl, everyone's like dressed pretty smart when they're wearing.
You gotta have the suit. You gotta go full on. If you got a tux, throw the tux on. It makes you look
That's right.
And again, you get some stares when you're in the grocery store dressed like that. But you know what? To be honest, people are letting a lot of stuff slide now.
Well, and here's the other thing, too. Wearing that, it's pretty easy to get people to stop staring, too. All right. At InStockTrades.com, they have the DC Poster Portfolio Dark Knights Metal Trade Paperback, $24.99 regularly, 42% off, only $14.49. DC Horror presents The Conjuring the Lover hardcover, $24.99 regularly, 42% off, only $14.49. Thank you, DCB Service and InStock Trades, for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, we are at our anniversary time, and we like to do something special for our anniversary, and we've done a wide variety of different kinds of episodes. This time around, we're touching on a book that Jim and I have never read, Camelot 3000. We're going to do a two different episodes focusing on the first and second half of this story. It's available on the DC Infinite app, all 12 issues. It's available for purchase digitally. It's available for purchase as a collected edition as well. So we felt like this was a good large event to talk about that was something fresh, something a little different from the past. Mike W. Barr, Brian Boland. It's a big story, and I'm anxious I've been reading it already. We've got issues 1 through 6 next week. We will see you then.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Sean, Jim, how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's